Greetings, lords and ladies. Getting going here. My streaming brain and my I really need a Jamie. I really do. My streaming brain and my video brain and my writing brain and my reading brain still don't quite multitask properly. Getting Judah up in here. I created an intro for the show, which I'm going to premiere today. It was used audio-wise in the previous episode of the podcast. I still haven't figured out. I was just editing the video part of it. Still haven't figured out how exactly I'm going to make it work as far as switching it goes. I've got infinite window upon window. Okay, what am I doing? Okay. All right, Judah is getting ready to get into the stream. We'll be about ready to go. Got a long essay today. It's all over the place. Total. It's 5 pages long. This could be like a 20-minute or I don't know. We'll see what happens. Getting there. I hope everyone is well this morning. I put in my 2-week notice for work, so I'll be transitioning out of my current role. I'm on call today, so I might actually have to drop the stream. We shall see. And I need to get this thing. Yeah, I need to switch this. Hold on 1 second. Yep. Okay, that's still not it. There she is. Greetings, lords and ladies. We're sorting out the. I wish we had like some little. I don't know. There's so many moving parts to this thing. I need some sort of like staging room before we go live, so we can get all this technical junk sorted out. But you know, I mean, hey, it happens to MSNBC or whoever it was. So I mean, you know, we'll get there. We'll get there. Technical difficulties happening. So, big gulps, huh? There's a couple people here. How are y'all doing this week? We've been talking about the show in June. I'm kind of getting my libertarian rants out of my system so that we don't get stuck here, because that's really not the point of this show. It's the point of the show is trying to find a more synthesized and synchronized cross-pollination of skill sets across a variety of disciplines to live a more integrated life. It's like self-help, but not one note. I find that some of the things that have been instructive for me in the last couple of years when I've been pretty depressed. They're good, but they're not necessarily whole. They're not holistic strategies for dealing with mental health issues or life in general. So it's like, oh, I get in good physical shape, but then I don't have time to stretch my mind. And then, I read books, but then I don't have time to spend with my kids. So it's like this, I feel like you got all these spinning plates and you're only doing, you're only doing it. It's like you have these little brief moments of, oh, this is working. And then everything kind of just falls and crashes. House of Cards style. Hey, the improbable one. I still hadn't gotten, this week's a bit bad. I was supposed to watch a movie for our next podcast and I didn't get to it. Hey, Judah.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
In the same boat. Yep. Peterson versus Harris. I still haven't seen that one yet. JVP versus Sam Harris. I think that would be a good one to check in on. I meant to disable Super Chat this week. It's still up and running. We will be transitioning off of YouTube monetarily for the for the foreseeable future. There's a couple things that happened the last couple of weeks that just finally the nails in the coffin for me with Google.
What'd they do?
It's a long story. I mean, I'll probably do a whole podcast on it. We could probably reverse redact YouTube. That's one YouTube personality. He's got about 150,000 subscribers. He committed suicide last week. I don't know, a week or 10 days ago. Yeah, younger guy, black dude, living in New York, and he kind of pushed the limit.
Yeah.
Etika. And to me, that was the final straw.
Yeah, he's from Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. I thought it was New York. So yeah, I don't know. That in conjunction with what's happened to H3. H3 did this video about Universal Music Group last week that really, it just makes me so angry. Just how they're siding with these giant conglomerates who break every rule known to man. In terms of, I mean, they're just giant cartels. The same thing as like railroad cartels back in 1900s, and they play fast and loose with the rules, and basically they're monetizing everything on YouTube. So I mean, if one guy got monetized, I can't remember the guy's name. He's kind of bigger. He's like the new iDubbbz, Gus something. He got monetized for mentioning in the title the name of the song. Never plays the song. He's talking about the song, and he gets monetized. I mean, it's just their interpretation of copyright law is so stupid and so outmoded. Some of what we're going to talk about today actually is copyright law and legalese and the stupidity of this paper-based system in a digital world. So I'm going to try to do something today which requires me some switching in the middle of my reading. So we'll see if I can multitask it properly. I'm a little skeptical. Let's see, maybe I'll do, okay, I'm going like this. Okay, I'm suddenly, hold on one second. Let me get to this over here. Papa GPA. Okay. Hey, my old songs in my head. I'm using my old American Indian song for the intro. It's one of the favorite things I did. All right, lords and ladies, we're going to dive in to the I reset my router. I added another node in the room here, so hopefully we won't have any streaming issues like last week. Okay. This is the part 4, the final in a series of essays I have called The Fool's Mental Alchemist. A disjointed stream of consciousness, pseudo-Ford rant. Series of essays exploring the ways in which centralized power structures leverage the little guy to be pawns in their game. There's a naive tendency to expect evil to look evil, but age-old wisdom warned the best hiding place for a villain is right in plain sight. the wolf in sheep's clothing, the devil masquerading as an angel of light. Or, if you like, Jar Jar playing the part of comic relief. I like that theory. Here, I'm going to share this. I forgot to share it with you all. We'll put this in the chat. And I'll put this in the chat for Facebook as well. 1 second. So this is the text in case you get lost in some of my middle brow verbiage. There you go. Let me know if the link is not working in Restream.
Okay.
Is it can you test that link, Judah, see if it works?
Yeah. I'm at the folks' house. So I'm working off of bare bones internet here.
Gotcha. Can you click that link, make sure it opens up for you?
Yeah, as soon as it comes up.
Oh.
I'm surprised. I guess it's hard to stream both. I'm streaming them off my phone.
Oh, okay. It seems to be working. But the
yes. I can't get it up.
Can't get okay.
Let me see.
Jared, let me know if you could click that to see if it works. Last week there were some issues with the links.
I'm not.
Improbable One says it works.
Okay.
You can jump on in there in Facebook and let me know. Lord's Lays. Okay. I've already mentioned one method, the false humility cloak of incompetence that many appeal to when seeking power over their fellow man by playing dumb or playing the victim to shift probing eyes that would otherwise hold them accountable. We're going to look at two more mind games played by cheaters who think they've discovered the demagogue's holy grail. The first is legalese. That's words as shields instead of words as scalpels. The word became flesh and dwelt among us, but not according to these guys. Incarnation is the mortal enemy of the ivory tower intellectual, the professional religious leader, the paid politician. Clever, but a fate, these vestigial beings are nothing more than naked gray matter and wagging tongues. Disembodied synthetic intelligences, avatars floating above the dust. They are not strong enough to wield literal shields, nor courageous enough to wield weapons of war, so they hide behind words. We went from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, to the Iron Age, and overthrew all of these with the Paper Age? How could paper overthrow steel? The Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of the Rights of Man, all innovative restructurings of power penned on paper that shared one fatal error, the illusion of permanence. All of them were short-sighted, idealistic trajectories that became outmoded with time due to unforeseen innovation. But like the deferential and superstitious beings we are, we saw these paper icons as the new tablets of stone penned by God, and fearing the chaos that could erupt on the other side of these paper walls, we doubled down. Paper worked last time to speak truth to power, so let's just do more of the same. It took 200 years for the U.S. federal government to publish almost 80,000 pages of more paper to make the system of checks and balances as arcane as one could possibly imagine, until the next 40 years happened. That is, in which that number has more than doubled. That's right, over 170,000 pages of paper to navigate this legal labyrinth. That's in the Code of Federal Regulations alone. We live in the digital age, and our money has moved on in theory. Modern monetary theory has seen to it that our money is not only not gold-backed, but not even cash-backed. We deal in numbers on a screen, which I will talk about in more detail in a few minutes. But the power to do such a thing, play a giant video game with everyone's net worth represented by numbers on a screen, is made possible by all that paper. We do not live in the digital age as far as the government is concerned. Patents, copyright, intellectual property, tax code, land use laws, which at one point were used to speak truth to power, in the Magna Carta have been culturally appropriated by scribes and Pharisees who hide behind their ultimate legal accomplishment, minutiae, carte blanche. Try to pay your taxes online to the government. See how easy that is. You can pay your taxes. You can pay digitally to almost anything, to local businesses. Local businesses can pull out their cell phone, and with that little square thing, you can run your credit card. Just a person with a checking account can do that. But try to do it with the government. It takes like 7 days of all this checking and back and forth and paper.
Yeah.
From Magna Carta to minutiae carte blanche. Minutiae carte blanche rewards rent seekers, regulatory capture, cartels, patent trolls, government grant parasites, and lobbyists. Behind every one of these words as shields, there are myriad subsidized middlemen who are getting a piece of the pie. Minutiae carte blanche hides ignorance behind verbosity and equivocation. I'm one to talk, right? I've mentioned this quote from the introduction of Marshall McLuhan's Gutenberg Galaxy. I'll probably keep quoting it until I have it memorized. These words in the intro were penned by Elena Lamberti. Great observation and pithy summary of one of McLuhan's many contributions to our epistemological environment. Consistently, McLuhan insisted that in the information age, the specialist is an anachronism, someone that, according to him, never makes small mistakes while moving toward the grand fallacy. We are a schizophrenic people, our intelligence stuck between multiple stages of human intellectual evolution. We should have embraced the information age, but we remain in the disinformation age, using words as labyrinths, not to inspire creativity or adventure, but to conserve power. Legalists who strain at gnats and swallow camels, we crucify our progeny to subsidize Netflix and chill. There's nothing scientific about our matronizing moralism. Minutia carte blanche is a dead meme. It is time to evolve. The final ring of power I want to mention briefly is fiat, the emperor's new value. Let there be value. I've already alluded to it. Modern monetary theory would have been deemed a parody if it had been written by Orwell in a dystopian novel, but it is now a reality. Currency moving from gold to promissory notes, to cash, to credit, to a video game score. Fiat is naked, decrepit authority that a gullible mob willingly lauds as the Adonisian ideal. Move over, Michelangelo's David. This is what peak male performance looks like. Paul Krugman, Warren Buffett, and Bernie Sanders. Now that's a circle jerk I can get into. Whereas false humility actually makes pretensions of truth, fiat tells a bald-faced lie, and it magically becomes true because idiots allow it to be so. Garbage music, garbage money, garbage building materials, garbage architecture, garbage court gestures, late night talk show hosts, garbage storytellers are all lauded as geniuses just cause the great Oz has spoken. No, that mumble rap song is totally not just a dude saying yeah over an automated beat made by an artificial intelligence garage band drummer. No, that AAA rating from Lehman Brothers is totally not a case of insider trading that deserves actual accountability. No, that $15 million church building is totally not an excessive misuse of funds, even though Jesus never had an actual building during his public ministry. We get these absurd valuations because value in a post-fiat market is a popularity contest. It's a name-it, claim-it economy. I tell you right now, lords and ladies, that you too can lay hands on that Tesla and claim it in the name of your Lord and Savior, John Maynard Keynes. The market will bend to your will. Amen. Creation is a near impossibility, but fiat creation, the seemingly magical act of declaring something so that reality rearranges to make this lie become true with no other intervening factors, this is another form of impossibility that humans still believe is possible. Some would call this magic and believe that it is a vestigial notion that has no effect on society, but we all live in a society of fiat value. We believe things have value because someone says they do. Modern monetary theory is the alchemical ideal of the empire of illusion. Capital is not the real villain. The machine of capital is only churning out the mixed bag of the world we inhabit as a result of the fiat garbage we put into it. If the capital investment you put into capital consists of humans as resources, fiat currency, and short-sighted sloth, greed, envy, and lust, capital will spit out a chimera. Congratulations, capital. It's a xenomorph-alien. You cannot speak things into existence. Free speech does not become blasphemy because your feelings were hurt and you cry, hate speech. Money gained by terror or slavery is not washed clean by being declared profit. Your prayer for market dominance in your local religious economy does not become sanctified of its greed because you use that magic incantation in Jesus' name. Your words are not actions. They can reflect reality, but only when joined with action can they become reality. If finite humans attempt to invoke the magic of fiat
by any means other than immediate violence, the violence will pool, fester, and self-propagate. If you do not own the violence, that is, if you do not feel the adverse effects of acting in a world characterized by natural selection and Murphy's Law, that violence will find its mark somewhere. Since I started doing menial labor after Hurricane Michael, I found that not a week goes by without blood. I get cut, or pull a muscle, get bruised, or hit my head at least once a day, and I've never felt better. Blood, sweat, and tears are not obstacles to be avoided. They are the raw materials of real value. The disutility of work appears to be the primary obstacle between ought and is, but it is a bridge, the only bridge. If you refuse to acknowledge that hard work must be done in order to make ideas become real, the God of the gaps powering your fiat declaration will be someone else's blood, sweat, and tears. If you offshore this work, and I don't mean aristocratic notions of work like sitting in front of a computer, talking and writing, you will become an insufferable hypocrite who does not realize your words are underwritten by another human being's physical pain. Usually out of sight, out of mind. But physical pain, here's the irony, physical pain is better than existential pain by a mile. Find something menial and physically taxing to do that actually has an economic end. Work. Stop working out. Start building and repairing homes. Stop being an activist. Invest your activity in a real-world business solution to the problem you perceive. Again, not talking about it or writing about it, but doing the actual sweat-yielding work. And yeah, I've done my 46 hours of sweaty work this week, so I'm not speaking out of turn. Our economy is built on the spaghetti code of our forebears. Until we go down into the middle of the muck and sort out why so many important pieces of our modern world are breaking, unreliable, and prematurely obsolete, cars, homes, and computers being just 3 examples, we will continue feeling this disconnected existential dread. Fiat declarations will not change our state. Human beings are not wizards. When we employ the magical incantations of fiat and the world seems to oblige us, it is only because a nefarious system is leveraging slavery as means to bring about your naively imagined ends. Fiat is not real. The alchemical ideal is a dead meme. Stop being a fool. Stop worshiping mental alchemy. Evolve already. Consciously, intentionally, choose to act instead of waiting around for an existential lottery ticket. Score just subscribed. Thank you so much, Score. Appreciate it. And with that thought, here's my little intro. R242 just subscribed. Thank you. R242. That's my same song that I'm about to play. All right. Acute Zephyr. I have a feeling that one of our buddies has gifted some subs. Alan Branch just subscribed. What?
No.
Hey, thanks, Alan. Appreciate
When
it.
did he unsubscribe?
Aditya Arangi06 just subscribed. Thank you, Aditya. I hope you enjoy the month. July won't be so many ridiculous rants. It's going to be more focused. Queen Caddy69, thank you for the subscription.
What are you talking about, dude? The front is what bringing people in.
I know why this is. Chloris 002, thank you for the subscription. Good to see you again, Kara.
France is like a fertilizer.
King Etch. Are you already subscribed? This is on Twitch, so I'm migrating everything over to Twitch, baby. So come on over, Alex. Come on over. Definitely not Solo Renekton. So that you could just pick the people you used to subscribe and just like that's pretty cool. Software Architect just subscribed. Thank you. This is one very nice dude who prefers to remain nameless at the moment, just gifting all the subscriptions to previous subscribers of the channel.
Wow.
So July will be a little bit less meta, I guess. I think we're going to try to be more practical. We're moving into a new trailer. Well, it's not. It's an old trailer, mobile home. We'll be doing a lot of work. It's going to be kind of fixer-upper month for us. So I want to kind of focus more on this synthesis, this physical output idea. And obviously I overstate my case and go all over the place in these sorts of frants. But trying to be less idealistic with these essays and a little more practical. How do we get from point A to point B rather than just talking about the villains? Yeah, how do we get there? So here's a little intro.
Let's do it.
Broadcasting live from Flyover Country, this is the Surfing Violinist Podcast.
Welcome to the military.
Keep up.
I am more than one thing.
That's right, Judge. I'm in your courtroom, robo-tripping, baby.
Warren Caulfield punching a hole in his wall.
Breaking news. Miranda. एक शोक समाचार.
It was so wrong. You got a baby carrot on your face.
Then I won't speak. Just let me show you.
If the rule you followed, Brudget is, of what use was the rule?
All right. So, thoughts, Judah, from our intro and essay.
Oh, yes, intro. Lovely. I couldn't hear it, but
Oh,
I'm sure.
the essay then.
Yeah, the essay. So I'm trying to wrap my head around it in the sense that, like, I guess it does come down to what helped you get physical? What helped you bleed? What brought you into a more physical existence rather than a fiat existence?
Well, I'm still such a baby in this whole thing. I mean, I'm still learning. I'm only, a few months into it, really. And I wouldn't say that where I'm at is where the human ideal is. It's kind of like I just keep coming back to that statement that Jared said about being like a waterfall, and that we change as humans, and in that change are we retaining our same identity. And in a way, to be human, we need to, I keep saying this, but we need to conserve the good things that came before, so that we don't repeat the failures that were, parallel with those successes, right? So,
yeah.
Like if somebody made wealth, but they made it by means of slavery, it's like, is there a way we can take the slave out of that equation, replace it with something else, and it's almost like a substitution. Like if there's some other way to substitute that, is there a technology that can be put in place? And to be really, really crystal clear in our evaluation, I always think of Citizen Kane, because at the beginning of Kane's whole journey, he writes his Declaration of Principles, and Joseph Cotton's character, I'm blanking on his name, Leland, he says, I want to hold this for later, and there's a look on Kane's face, on Orson Welles' face, it's like, oh shoot, someone's going to hold me accountable to this thing. And again, he wrote it. It's interesting. He wrote it on paper, and so it's not something that's subject to adaptation, to amendment.
Right.
So we need to be real clear when we come. We need to almost be more general in our goals. Like Google's goal, "Don't be evil," is too general. We need to be more specific with that. But we need to be. We get to a point like maybe 2 months from now, I realize getting off YouTube, they've done some things to change, and we can meet in the middle. So it's like there's that fine art of what is compromise and what is compromise that is a moral compromise, and what is compromise that's just people learning to get along. Like friends have to compromise in order to be friends. So I think where I am in this path of trying to find ways to conserve old physical parts of human existence, hard work, being outside, being in the sun, just traditional work before technology. How do we find ways to conserve that's not waste? How do we find ways to conserve that without like offshoring the pain, I guess is one way you could say. So when this started for me was back in India. I was walking down a road, and there was they had a skate park. What do we call that? Vijay called this, oh man, where they lived off of this. They lived on the way to this place where the skate park was, and they had a name for it. It was like a Snake's Way or something. It was it was a Dragon Ball Z reference. Like you had to, this road just kept snaking around. It was real narrow, real like old school, villagey India. And I mean, there was a big metro stop nearby. I was walking down this road and I saw some guys, like they build things, rebars just everywhere, right? Like, so it's concrete and rebar. And so for some reason that just sticks out in my head. And I just thought, instead of working out on skateboarding, because I'm not good at skateboarding, I never will be. They had this little skate park, which is really cool. But I'm just never gonna be good at skateboarding. Instead of doing that, instead of working out, like, cause I just lose interest in working out. What if I just like volunteered to work? It's like, you've got these people that go to other countries and they call it, it's almost like poverty tourism or whatever. They'll go in and like, oh, look at how poor these people are. And now ecotourism has happened. And like, what if there were a way to just, it's almost like a
labor ready, but
yes,
so they hire you to,
yes.
Temp work overseas.
You're actually working, and you're not just doing it to take selfies. Like, you should do a reason. You should like have that as a rule. Like, I felt real weird. Every now and then I'll start to like take a picture with some guys I'm working with, and it just feels almost like it's like I just keep that out of my life. I've been a vlogger for 8 years now or whatever, but it's like I feels wrong to do it. It's almost like, oh, look how sweaty I got, or look who I'm hanging out with. It's just like this. It's this weird sort of signaling thing. So you don't want this to become that. It's really more, I know that some places in Europe especially have this sort of mentality where you can like help on the farm and you get to stay for free, that kind of thing.
They have that here in America too.
Oh, right. Like that kind of thing I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then you could have, like, maybe you're not even trying to make money doing it, but like you get paid a wage no matter what, and then you can say, oh, we're going to put it back into whatever, it's like, I'm going to give my share to blah, 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 or whatever. It's what I'm finding is like my physical fitness is the best it's ever been because weird labor work is really all encompassing. You hit muscle groups you wouldn't even know how to target. I mean, there's a whole science of it now. Some of these bodybuilders really, they know how to do it if they're out at a like really extreme level. But most of us don't have time to be that extreme, and so.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the rub for me is, I just lost it, but has to do with like, we're not asking, oh, that's what I was going to say. I think the beauty of a frant is that it puts emotion, it puts stakes, at least felt stakes to a problem, right? Like it points it out, emphasize it with emotion, and I appreciate that about your friends. And I want to know what to do about it at the same time,
right?
And I don't know that, because you and I, we don't want to continue doing labor jobs. That's not our goal to do this forever.
Right.
If we're in a labor job, we're not asking people to go quit their job or look for a job rehab at homes.
Well, I think that.
So what?
Well, I think okay. So there's a few things. I talked with this one guy on Twitter. He was under the Twitter handle Mimetic Value, and we had we hit it up over one of these just tweet streams back and forth, and we had a phone conversation while I was on a road trip one day. And one of the things he said, and it's the same thing I was kind of thinking, but I wasn't really putting in the same terminology. He was like, he was trying to come up with an app. It's like a daily planner sort of deal, but focused on this integrated approach. And it's almost like an algorithm for a human to follow, because I have found that one of the things that work has helped me with this physical labor is if I'm really frustrated, like last night I was really frustrated. But it's like I don't have time to remain on it. You don't have time to dwell because you're moving on to the next thing. And you're sweating. And as soon as you sweat, as soon as like a gnat hits, like it's almost like I think this is why people end up doing a lot of self-harm at a certain point, because it's almost like your body needs it to equalize the pressure. You've got all this emotional stress, this intellectual stress, but there's no physical stress to like, so you're out of equilibrium, And so the thing that
he was talking about, and I've been trying to figure out ever since this Building a Better Me thing began, what is trying to find like a flow chart, like a pseudocode for humans to follow that is more, I guess, dynamic than your typical 12-step program, or more like not so focused on just one area. Because what I find people do, like, okay, so Dave Ramsey, I listen to a lot of Dave Ramsey. He talks about personal finances and getting out of debt. I really like how focused he is, but I feel like at the same time, it's like a person can be successful in that one thing, but then they end up making that one thing the litmus test for everything, and the rest of their life just becomes robotic. And even though they get out of, let's say they get out of debt, but they've established a pattern that makes it impossible for them to ever change after that. Like they think that is the rule for reality rather than a tool. So
it's almost like they get out of the rut of debt and get into a new rut of self-discipline or something.
Yeah, but it ends up not being self-discipline because it's mediated by someone else. And so it's just, it's almost like people are, it's like one of the things, it's almost like we're looking for a new master. And once we found that new master, we give them everything, and then we don't really live this synthesized life that I'm talking about. Like synthesized meaning, from multiple inputs, putting a bunch of different things together. And I think from a nature and nurture standpoint, that's just accurate. We're all unique. How do we retain our unique individuality while not just becoming this blubberous, mess? Like my ability to attract clutter and not clean things up. Like I need some more Marie Kondo and Dave Ramsey in my life, right? Like, but I don't want to become either one of those people. So it's like, I think that's kind of what we're trying to figure out with this whole thing to make it, to make it an incarnation. So it's not just this idea, this ghost of an idea that's hanging up here, that we try to, it's like a Platonic ideal, right? Like we're trying to match reality to the Platonic ideal, but the Platonic ideal is not, doesn't have feet, So I think that's kind of the difficulty in trying to figure that out. And I've puzzled over it since we got back from India, but I think this manual labor has bit helpful. It's actually helped me get a little closer to it. And a lot of what I say, like, I'm not meaning for any of this to be an indictment on anybody that does any of this stuff. This is us. I mean, this is where we are in late capital consumerism, where we're all, self-medicating to, or we're all, trying to, any first step we take is going to have some problem with it. We're going to be off balance. We're going to look kooky, whatever. But definitely take the steps. Like for me, Chris Gethin was a real ray of light when I met him in India, and he talked about bodybuilding. It's like, I had no interest in bodybuilding, but I kind of took it up and followed his path, and it really did give me a new perspective. I could see things from a different direction. I realized, okay, I'm not going to become Chris Gethin necessarily, but this has given me a different vantage point of the obstacle in front of me, and I feel better suited to deal with it, And I want that to be the same thing with the surfing violinist. I don't want people to become surfing violinist disciples. I want people to become their own thing, whatever the things. So, the Improbable One, he's been doing a lot of photo taking on Instagram and really coming at it with a cinematic eye. And I mean, he's just improved light years just from just being more intentional when he's I imagine watching films or looking at other more better constructed, like cinematically pictures on Instagram, and it's just given him a different perspective. It'll take something that normally would be mundane that we just walk past and imbue it with this perspective, and that's so like there's multiple ways we can do it. So yeah, I don't want people to become synthetic surfing violinists. I want them to become the photographing free runner or whatever, whatever their things are. And I think, a lot of these people that I've been really getting inspiration from on Twitter they have this same thing where they've kind of created a personality that gets at something that's dear to them. You know, it's not necessarily the defining element of their life, but it's something that's dear to them, and it gives them, you know, a little different perspective than I would have. And even though we're different politically or ideologically or socially or culturally, we live in a different place. All of a sudden, I'm like, wow, I just would not have thought of it like that. And that's one of the things that attracted us to India in the beginning, was just seeing things from a different vantage point.
Yeah, like a dramatically different perspective altogether, like different colors, different shapes, everything, different views.
Yeah, Bomb Diggy Bomb Bomb says, why clear clutter? What difference does it make? Well, I think a practical reason is just in moments, there's good, yeah, everything, there are no solutions, only trade-offs, as my brother-in-law likes to say. The one problem with having things super clean, if you go too far, then it can feel very almost oppressive, like you're living in a museum. And again, it feels almost like you become robotic, and you lose that dynamic.
You become a slave to.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's like instead of the cleanliness being a tool, it almost becomes a master. But on the other hand, I think for me, why clearing clutter is important is there's a lot of times I need to do something and I can't find it because I have not been organized enough. So it's just like, I think we need to find some sort of, if we are to remain individuals, we need to find somewhere on the spectrum between the Millennium Falcon and, like, you know, a X-Wing or something like that. Like the Millennium Falcon's just this hodgepodge of whatever, just kind of improvisational, bootstrapped junk heap. I got in truck this week. I liquidated my Ethereum. Oh yeah, by the way, that Ethereum jump. Did you see that when Bitcoin hit 13? Ethereum went to 360. So I sold it 260. I had 9. So I ended up losing like $1,000.
Yes,
I would have sold too. If once it hit 2, that's the problem. Oh, I would have sold at 260. Heck yeah, 360 because my average was at 300, and but anyways, so I got this junk heap of a truck. It's a Ford F-150. We're calling it. We have christened it. We always name our vehicles. We've christened this one. What is it? Natty Granddaddy. So it's a Natty Light can, but it's like all beat up. So it's instead of a Natty Daddy, it's Natty Granddaddy. So it's a mess. 330,000 miles.
Wow.
So I've got my Millennium Falcon. I'm gonna see if I can learn some stuff about technical clearing up cars. Bomb Diggy Bomb Bob says you're 144p, Judah.
I wish I could do something about it.
There's something interesting. Okay, Sankanil Goswami says, a distracted mind. Okay, not to oversimplify, the increase in existential threat is an indirect or direct result of the exponential increase in our inability to pay attention. A distracted mind invites suffering. I think that's analogous to what I'm saying about having a mess. If our minds are a mess, then it's really easy to suffer. Like, and I suffer at work when my mind is on Twitter. You know, like, because I'm it's like I'm serving two masters. You know, it's like my intellect is like going 1,000 miles an hour, and it's like, you told me to do what? And I get indignant, you know, and it's this self-righteous, like, it really is that aristocratic thing. There's something about it, like, as soon as you're thinking really clearly or at a high level, all of a sudden you're just like, you plebeians, how dare you affront me with this minutia? So
well, and there's something about clutter that is antithetical to relationship. So if you're in a marriage or in a relationship living with somebody, even if you're in a relationship with a roommate, you know, clutter. So if you're living on your own, I think you have your own space, you're alone. You can focus on something. I think of the mad scientist syndrome, where they just focus completely on one thing and they make this thing, they invent, you know, but everything else falls apart, including their relationships.
Right. That's the problem that we often forget. And movies have done a
pretty good job of showing with biopics. You know, the one I keep thinking of recently is with Johnny Flynn playing Albert Einstein in Genius, National Geographic Channel of all things. But they do show how much strain is put on the people around a genius. It's just real. It seems great until you're around. It's just like being around a rock star or anything else. It's like the neuroses all come out when the lights go down. You know, it's just these people are not organized enough emotionally and intellectually to really. And so that's one of the pitfalls we want to try to avoid. How can we still be socially and culturally connected, and get along with people, if we are thinking really high up here, or we're really successful in a business, or we're really successful in a sport. One of the things David Foster Wallace said, he was really fascinated by how, this is pretty much how he put it, how dumb professional athletes can be when told, maybe not outside of their field of expertise, but when told to articulate how the game went. It's like every single time they say the exact, it doesn't matter what sport it is. It's like, well, it's really focused on the fundamentals. It's just all these platitudes, and it's not
110%.
Yeah, it's 110%. It's just always, and he's just like, how inarticulate are, and then he's like, I used to play tennis, but it's like the more I wrote, the worse I became at tennis. And it's the same for me with violin. It's like the more I talk, the worse I become at violin. It's like there is some sort of weird thing going on there. Is it there are no solutions, there are only compromises? Is it impossible to be like the best violinist and an intellectual? So I've tried to figure out how to marry those things. I feel like it's a breakdown in that our interface. This is my theory. My theory is that our interfaces for doing these different things are too stringent. So you have to use a certain part of your mind to pick up a pen, to type, to talk, and that part is just not allowed to actually fully integrate with the other side of the brain, and your body. And so it makes this kind of, again, like one side, you have a spindle of success and specialist perfection, but it's like subsidized by the lack of the other things. I think if we had better like technologies to to express meaning, emotion through our nonverbals. That's the thing I'm really kind of focusing on now, that the next phase of human interface evolution will include a lot of gestures, which will make things much more dynamic. Well, I think recapture some of what we lost when we moved to this printing press, electronic, technologically dependent world, where we did lose, and I think we all feel it. In this, there's this.
The Facebook world has created a sense in which it has taken game playing to a new level. The fiat aspect has become more powerful than anything else, right? Like, we're involved in this game where the rules are based on a meta level rather than anybody actually so when you say mumble rap is good, then that's just it's a meme on Facebook that's telling me what I should like, rather than a face-to-face conversation doing something together with somebody.
Well, and I think there's always been this problem within the arts. I mean, we decry it because we are where we are. But if you went back to Mozart's day or Beethoven's day and listened to the dime a dozen Mozarts, there were a lot of them. Like, it's just forgettable music. Like, they all sounded the same. The reason why some of these, it's some pattern, some combination of luck and skill, and certain moments of timelessness in the great composers of that time period that rose to the surface. But there was a lot of junk too. So it's like last night, one of my coworkers, he put my radio station on 99.3 The Beat, which is like classic
hip hop and rap. And that was 2 months ago, and I've never changed it. I don't even like rap or hip hop, but for some reason I've just left it on there. It's like Steve Harvey morning show in the morning, and I'll listen for a few minutes before I listen to podcasts. So I just left it on there. And for some reason, right when I cranked up, this has happened twice in a row to me. Right when I cranked up, I got 5 on it. You know, that one about smoking weed. I was like, what a catchy. I mean, and I don't like rap, but I love that melody. And there's something like kind of dark about it too. It's like kind of melancholy at the same time. I think it's a really good song. And then right after that, it was DMX. Party Up. I was like, that's another, like, I was like, okay, I can't argue with this. I know I'm white and I can't move. I've never had a good club experience, but I can't argue with DMX. And then the next one is it was so weird. It was like this trip down memory lane. The next one was what are their names? It's prior to Destiny's Child. It was the don't go chasing waterfalls, just stick to the rivers and the lakes that you used to. I know y'all listen to hear my singing. What is their names? It's not Salt and Pepper. It's I don't want no scrub. It's those ladies. I don't want no scrub. Scrub is a.
I remember.
Anyways, so.
It's a flower.
It's a flower.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either. White guys trying to remember good hip hop and R&B. But yeah, like those rise to the top, and I do think that they will be remembered because I think they're actually good melodies, you know? Like, so in every genre, in every art form, in every subculture, there's genius, and there's something that has a time. What is it? TLC, that's it. Oh, yeah, bombs. Thank you. You got it. But there's always going to be something that's capturing the zeitgeist, and it feel like when you listen to it, it's the logo, and they were talking. Who was talking about this? I can't remember. Maybe it was Zero H.P. Lovecraft. They had him on the Tech Wars podcast, and he talked about this. It's a type of cookie. Man, I'm like not remembering anything right now. Madeleine. It's the Madeleine effect, where you eat this one. Like maybe you haven't had this Madeleine in 10 years, and you take a bite of it, and you're transported back. And so Logo was talking about how Logo Daedalus on Twitter. Fantastic writer, just finished his book. God tier. Okay, this he's only 25 years old. God tier. Okay. I mean, I am one of those people that as soon as I read something or watch something, I'm like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And then someone will say something bad about it. I'm like, it's just like what Jared said. It's like, well, maybe they're right. And then I'll like backpedal and retract. But anyways, he was talking about how the smell of Black and Milds would transport him back, and you could feel, I mean, it was like it was back there. And I've had a similar experience with Harsh Joshi with the donation. I cannot see it. Hold on. Hello, Ford. I think that consumerism is a much deeper problem than one brought out on by capitalism. Probably crappity crap. I didn't get to read the whole thing.
What happened? Can we read it?
Can you read it?
If I can find it.
It's on Twitch.
Oh, no.
There's something wrong with my thing. Could you type that in the chat if it doesn't show up for me on the Twitch? There's something wrong with my other computer. Hold on one second. I had the monitor. My other monitor over here had like the little. Oh, never mind. Okay. There's more to capitalism than consumerism. Okay. I think that consumerism is a much deeper problem than one brought on by capitalism, probably relating to meaning and attachment in the philosophical sense. Yes, I think we do. Well, there is, like, talking about this Madeleine effect, you know, where you'll hear something or see something or a smell, you know, that deja vu feeling sometimes, or sometimes it's much more rooted to real memory. Like it's almost like a time machine taking you back to that moment. And so then we develop these attachments to these things that are really consumer products. And I think we need to, rather than run the other way and be ascetics and just get all this stuff out of our life, this is one of the reasons why I don't really like Joe Rogan's doing the Sober October thing. Like all that stuff, I don't like these things. I don't like Lent. I don't like these things where it's like
it's almost like a competition to get something out of your life. And I understand it's about self-improvement, but it's not sustainable in the long run. And I feel like in those 30 days, there are other things. It's almost like this kind of fasting is too old-fashioned to really be sustained in our world, because there are too many different streams of potential connection that can be made through the Madeline effect. And when we restrict ourselves from those because we have a rule, then it kind of makes us predictable, and it kind of.
Right, but on the flip side, if you restrict something that totally that dominates your desires, right, or dominates your attention, you restrict that, you're able to pay attention to other things that maybe normally would have been.
Yeah, that's true. It's so hard. I don't know. We do need more of a, again, to use Stoic sort of idea as a tool.
Yeah.
But again, like, I feel like there has to be a more dynamic way that we can incorporate it, so that we're not needlessly missing out on things, on these sort of serendipitous things that we could miss. I was.
That sounds a little dangerous.
Yeah, I know.
Looking for the serendipitous, like the fact that they're serendipitous. I mean, we can't just always be waiting on the little miracles.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that a lot of times what seems like a self-discipline thing is its own form of consumer gratification, just along a different spectrum. Like and it gives you a sense of pride. It's like it's a virtue signaling sort of like thing that it's Manichean, you know. It's like you're siding with this. Okay, here's. Let me see if this will help get to what I'm trying to think about here. So this week I did my first product review. I didn't upload it, but I'm going to call it Ubik product reviews, or Ubik gimmick reviews. And the idea is, in Philip K. Dick's Ubik, big spoiler, the whole point of that is he's stuck in this virtual reality nightmare. It's basically Silent Hill, but a little more technological than spiritual. He's stuck in someone's nightmare, and this someone is a bratty, selfish kid who just wants to uses his dream world as a malevolent, like it's like Sid from Toy Story. He's just basically using the people stuck in his dream as voodoo dolls. And so he's using that almost as a metaphor for all of capitalism, you know, late capital. And he might not put it in those terms, but definitely I think Dick would use the term consumerism. That might be another good way to put it. Oh, man, I love that book, dude. Like that book is just, it's so everything. Stuff just keeps it's just like living in a nightmare. And there are days that I feel like I'm in Ubik. But the crazy thing about it, the audacity of Ubik, is that he has a Deus Ex Machina that is a product. I don't know if you remember in 12 Monkeys how it's always like, Florida, come to Florida, Florida, right? Everything's come to Florida. And in that, it's like a distraction, you know, they're trying to play you. But in this, the Florida, the MacGuffin thing is actually like Jesus. So it's like, it's the thing, like you spray yourself with this Ubik. It's like, Ubik, buy now. And and it actually preserves life. I think that to me that's like the whole accelerationist mentality, but optimistic. It's like, just use it. Use capital, imbue it with as much meaning as possible. Who is behind Ubik in the thing? It's almost sheer will, not being, you know, life finds a way, not being willing to succumb to entropy. And that's, I guess, my problem with this ascetic sort of mentality about it. I think that you have to have both. You know, there's a time to say no, but we have to just be more dynamic. It almost has to be more Holy Spiritized, you know, than written in stone. Like we are past the point of the stone commandment being ultimate, I guess is the way I'm trying to put it there.
Yeah. I understand that. And I think it would be better to do like a fast based on just like it's time. Like you feel I'm up to here with, say, I'm addicted to hamburgers. I've been going and getting hamburgers every day,
Right.
and all of a sudden I just say, you know what? I'm so distracted by these hamburgers, and I feel like right now is the moment. I just need to take almost like led by the Holy Spirit, led by the universe, whatever you want to say. You know,
Right.
like it's time right now. I need to take a break from this, and look, what else? What are these hamburgers? What are they distracting me from right now?
And I think that is one of the things with traditional culture, whether it be like a tribalistic, animistic view, or more of like you look at the Catholic calendar, or in Hinduism, they have a certain calendar too, Jewish calendar, where there was a cycle, right? But it's like seeing the cycle instead of as just going around on one plane. It's like you're going around on that cycle, but it's like a spiral. And each time you come back around, you're getting something else that you didn't see before. And I do understand that. When I think of it like that, that makes more sense to me. Because I think that the temptation for me is to just get stuck in we've done this a billion times, there's nothing here. But it's like if there's certain movies I can watch a gajillion times, and every time I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that, And I think that's why people watch Let's Plays of their favorite video. Like, it seems from an outsider's perspective, it's very easy to be judgmental about this stuff. For me, it's easy to be judgmental about sports. It's like, why watch baseball? Why watch cricket? Why watch football, soccer? Ugh. But, we just do the same thing in some other area. Like I do with League of Legends. Like, oh, well, this is going to be an interesting team fight here. I've never seen a Lulu versus I'm blanking. But like there's some weird, champion select that makes it even different. So, and every game is different in its own way. So it's a ritual, but it's a ritual with layers of new value or new whatever. So I think there's probably something to it, that rhythm of letting go of something and adding something new.
Well, and for me, I guess my pushback is against this. I want to push back against in me and in what I hear from you, this frantic desire to get somewhere and not really know where that place is, but not here, and just instead say, this is where I'm at. Enjoy this, enjoy right now,
right.
Me, this, and not try to get, to somewhere else, not try to get to the next thing, not try to get success, not try to, building a better me in what I've seen so far. What you're saying is it's less about this building towards this ideal and just being like getting to know yourself and get like not being all you can be like the army, but something to the effect of knowing yourself. And like you said earlier, what do you really like, and getting into that, getting into your interests, getting into the things that make you who you are, instead of trying to be something else.
Right. And I think in the prologue of the Building a Better Me book that I was trying to write, I said, like, instead of just looking up to the heights with greed, look down to the soil with humble resolve. And I think what I'd like to see happen is more of an alignment of ends and means. So we're just not just building a better me to build the best company ever, but in order to get to the best company ever, we're trying to build a better means of getting there. And if it doesn't work, maybe this technology is just not in place. I think a lot of the problems we have is people were God tier prophets, these inventors and stuff, like God tier, like they could see the future before it happened 200 years ahead of time. But it's like Ian Malcolm says in Jurassic Park, they didn't stop to think if they should. They were so preoccupied whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And so you end up creating those, talking about punctuated equilibrium a lot. Like, we force this punctuated equilibrium that's just not ready. Like the pieces aren't in place yet. And what ends up happening between those, the stages of gradualism you need to get to that spike, basically are subsidized by someone else's pain. Like, you've just offshored the pain to them, and you don't think about it. And all of us are guilty of that, you know, to some degree or another. It's, you know, I'm thankful for these things. And I think the people who are working in the factories in a real sense are thankful too. They would rather be working there than the job that they had in their, you know, native village or whatever. But how many of us would be willing to do the same? And I think that we really do have to take that Marxist criticism seriously. If we want to, because it's not just affecting politics and the labor class and stuff like that. It's actually affecting us. That's my point, is that existential dread is every bit as hellacious as physical dread. And in some cases, it was an Indian that said this to me. It was an Indian property manager. He walked out like this. If a white person said this in America, this was a Jain businessman, great guy. But he said this about the rickshaw wallah who's waiting outside for us. He looked at him like, and he got back inside. He's like, that's the life. Just sitting there, kicking up your feet, not having to think about finances. And I mean, ultimate, like the first reaction that, you know, first word problem person, that person's like sweating. It's like, look, I've been sweating a lot in the last 30 days. Sweating ain't so bad. Like once you get used to it, it's like, I mean, you realize humans can withstand a lot. But no, he's right. That existential dread, a deal not going through, like problems with the family, like when you're juggling multiple properties, like there's this tendency to forget how difficult it is. I finally started writing this idea I've had. I'll say it. But the idea is basically, here's the high concept. It's like a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court from Clemens, Mark Twain. But it's reversed. It's it would be a King Arthur's court, like a King Arthur's knight or nobleman who is transported, and he's driving like a Tesla on Mulholland Drive, and he with no warning. He's like, it's like, try to imagine what that would be like. I'm like trying to like artistically, how would you show it? Because he doesn't have the concept. Like we tend to think of reality, you know, it's like, oh, he would just see the inside of a Tesla car. That's not what he would see, because it would be like sci-fi, you know, psilocybin trip for him. You know, he wouldn't. The colors and the shapes would just not even be. It would be like what we always talk about with Cthulhu. Like it's like some non-Euclidean geometry thing. Like that's what he would be like. Oh God. Arthur, where have I come, Lord? So, I think it would just putting people from the past, like in things that we take as mundane, driving 50, 70 miles an hour down a road. Can you imagine what would go through a person who's only ever ridden in a horse and carriage? They'd be like, these are gods. You know, the gods must be crazy. Kind of got into that a little bit when the Bushman's like, he sees her putting the clothes away. She's like, she was doing strange and magical things.
Yeah, but I think that's what I'm getting to when I'm trying to develop in myself, and the thought I'm trying to develop is existential angst can be dealt with just deciding to be in the moment, deciding to just accept where you're at.
Yeah.
You know, deciding to what did I say? The thing my friend told me last time is like everything comes down to this moment, and it's not that serious. Two things that helps him just be in the moment. Like everything comes down to this moment. It's all coming down to this moment. Everything is built up to this moment. It's all down to this moment. And it's not that serious.
That's actually really good. One of the
you
guys,
can mess it all up, and guess what?
It's
not going to end the world.
Yeah. Now you're right. Everything's come down to this moment. It's not that serious. And if you choose to do it, Jordan B. Peterson talks about this a lot. That psychologically, it's verified that if you choose the pain willingly, if you're not forced into it, if you make that conscious choice, like maybe you have to do it for your job, but you say, I'm going to own it. Like if you just take ownership of it and go in, then you have you're far less neurotic, you know? And so like last night for me, like I did not make that choice. I was just miserable the whole time. I had to tarp a roof and I was just just mad the whole time, and it makes it longer. Like it feels like interminable when you don't make that thing. Whereas if you just hum a song, then, and that's one of the things I'm thinking of too. Like, you know, when I work out, listen to music, it's like whistle while you work. Like if we could incorporate that into our work ethic of physical labor, that make it a dance. I really think dance is probably one of these lost art forms that especially dudes just, we do not express. I was talking earlier about non-verbally through gesture, that we're missing some part of us that's just screaming. It's almost like, you know, it's like a primordial kind of urge to move, and we're repressing it because all of our interfaces require less and less gesture, and gestures that don't really fit under our fingers or under our feet real well, you know?
Yeah, that's true. But it's not just singing and dancing while we do it. I think it's also having the option to just, or at least imagining the option to not do it.
Yes,
saying
that's good.
If I don't want to do this, I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
And what would that mean for me?
Yeah,
right now?
that's a good exercise right there. Is to say, what's the worst could happen if I say, you know what, I'm not doing it.
I'm just not doing it. I'm going home.
I'm going home.
And
are you going to fire me?
That a real option.
Yeah. Are you going to fire me? And most likely, in some cases, actually, they just totally wouldn't. They'd be like, well, we can't really afford to right now. We kind of need for this. And so then when you go through that, you're like, okay, or like, would they actually fire me over this? Yeah. Am I ready to be fired? Yeah, I kind of am. But if you get to you say, but I can do it. You know, I don't know. It gives, you're right. It gives you more wiggle room. And I think that other part of that is just so true. It's not that this is not the crux of the universe in this moment right here. The attitude is probably more important than the actual execution of the act. And I think that's what I mean about trying to align our means and ends that realize that the way to get there, the journey, it's just one of those stupid little platitudes. The journey is
great.
I'm actually quoting Strongman. it's the tagline. In your quirky, dysfunctional town, the journey is half the battle, or something. I don't remember. All right, let me look at some of the chat here before we wrap up for today.
All right.
Improbable One says, been thinking about your podcast. Do you think it gets way too real, that it gets a bit spooky?
The podcast or life?
I think maybe talking about the reality of what I do, or the reality of, he goes on to say, I think you can do better at balancing the real stuff that gets spooky and the things that give us hope too. And yeah, and if you look at that intro, I'm kind of trying to get there. I haven't really quite gotten there with the intro, but the idea is horror, levity. It's almost a shortcut between the two things, where we want to go to hell, we want to face it willingly and choose to dive into it, but at the same time, remember, there's something good here. There's a Ubik waiting in the wings. And there are things that are really, on the one hand, if you look at it from a certain perspective, so disgusting about consumerism, but then on the other hand are really kind of just beautiful. You know, I mean, it's just beautiful. Just listening to, I got 5 on it. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a little piece of art. It's a little piece of culture, and I don't think it's meaningless. So okay, I did want to get back to something Sankanil Goswami was saying. Not to oversimplify, the increase in existential threat is an indirect or direct result of the exponential increase in our inability to pay attention. A distracted mind invites suffering. He goes on to say, or rather, a distracted mind is the foundational field from which suffering or perceived existential threats emerge. Foundational field from which suffering or perceived existential threats emerge. That is kind of funny because I use Master Yi. I use a Master Yi from League of Legends line in my intro. And Master Yi has a little statement. It's only the focused mind can, I can't remember the rest of it. My brain's shut down. But I do think that there's a lot of truth to that. Having all this stuff coming in from different areas, like there's a time for it, right? Like there's a time where you're in the research mode, the research and development mode, or like, well, not the development mode, the research mode. You just want everything flying at you, but you need to, in order to make any sort of progress, you have to choose a direction. You know, we are corporeal beings and we cannot go in 1,000 different directions. So that focus, I think, is one of the things we're trying to figure out, how we can multitask focus with all the tools available to us without, dissipating all of our energy.
Well, the thing that I thought about earlier was that when you were talking, it has to come from within us. So like too often, we just live our lives like based on like everybody else is writing the script for us.
Ooh, yes, yes.
We're building the when you're on the tarp building, like,
yes.
I have to do this. Well, what? Who said you have to do this?
And I think, and that's one of the things I want to get at, is that so often, when we talked about the Red Room in The Haunting of Hill House, like I feel like there's so many, we all of us have some Red Room we're stuck in that we just cannot imagine getting out of it. That, and I have felt so much in the last few weeks that's like I'm still working for my grandfather when he had, his little homestead and the apartments, and it's just like it feels Sisyphusian, it feels interminable, like, and it's just the same. I'm stuck in the same chore over and over and over, and we are in a system where we don't have to say yes to that, And I mean, it's going to take some pain not to, but again, like pain is just part of life. Like just own it. And so I'm looking forward to like remodeling this trailer, and I don't know what the crap I'm doing, but I know more now than I did 8 months ago. I don't know how to fix my truck, but I'm pretty sure I'll be more handy than I was 8 months ago, and that's in large part. Yeah. Improbable One. I was talking about his Instagram account. You can look for him. Is it still Improbable One, or is it Akash? I need to share that somewhere. But yeah, man, I've been really going at it. Just locked script for short film begins shooting next week. It's all coming together now. So hey, keep us posted. I'd love to see the finished product. I missed Abhishek. He said that he's in Korea right now. It's almost midnight and he's still in office. This podcast is his break, and then he did have to get out. Loot Box Hell. That's our first person from Mixer commenting. Oh, we had a Mixer viewer for a while there. Cool. Thanks, Lootbox Hell. Oh, I think I know who that is. That's one of my dudes from work. It must be him because he's always talking about loot boxes, how they're evil. And the thing that's hilarious to me about it, he's just got out of high school. He's about to go in the military. He's the young guy, right? So he's supposed to be like the edgy one. And who is the one he was arguing that they need to legislate these loot boxes because they're preying on kids. I'm like, no, you keep the government out of it, dude. Yeah. Keep the government. You don't allow the government to do it. It's like, no, we need to regulate this. I thought it was funny. We had I'm the one that's supposed to be like, hey, we got to have the government step in. Anyways, it was funny having debate with someone half my age about a political thought. It's like maybe I'm the more childish. Alex said, I got a couple neuroscience articles you'd enjoy. Yes, I'm trying to read more. I read Logo's book pretty quick, so I'm getting back into the swing of thing.
Nice.
Alex asked for the Twitch link. Here, I'll try it again. Not that it's good now. I'm sorry I missed that message earlier. For the next 4 seconds, here you go. Sunkanil has got some good stuff today. Thanks, Sunkanil. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing the name right. Goswami, I can say that. I remember this quote saying that the kind of crisis or the perception of it that many people today find themselves in is mostly because the gap between technology and collective wisdom is too big. Oh, no, that's a keeper. That's a keeper. I want to find that. Yeah, find me, please do some research, find that quote. That's exactly the kind of stuff I'm talking about. In fact, in the introduction, I've got that taken out of context quote from Jeff Goldblum. It says, not without massive sequence gaps. He's talking about DNA sequencing, but I'm talking about punctuated equilibrium sequencing, where our technology is getting ahead of us and we don't actually understand how the technology works. We are actually, when you read Marshall McLuhan's Gutenberg Galaxy, he's talking about how it wired our brains, the printing press, in ways that we never even knew. And and I am convinced he's right. That's thanks to Logo Datalist for turning me on to that one. I'm convinced he's right. And we still, 400 years later, 500 years later now, don't realize the effects of just that technological innovation. And now we've added on top of it a whole spaghetti code of 1,000 more that are equally as like revolutionary. I mean, what we're doing right now is crazy. And we got an Indian dude in Korea coding and then watching us live. Like this, we're living in a crazy town. It's awesome, but it's scary at the same time. Alex said, imagine being wrapped in a straitjacket, being able to desire but not to do anything about it. Now imagine not desiring. That'd be the worst feeling. Ooh. That's a good point. And I think maybe that's what you're kind of getting at, Judah, is the choice to not indulge. It's you're wrapping yourself in the straitjacket. It's you're loving and lost. Loving and lost. It's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Right? Like you still have the yearning for that thing. Whereas if you are just Data, if you have no emotional, I mean, that's Data's whole point in Star Trek Next Generation is trying to be able to feel. I think that's true. So yeah, and that's true. You're right. You're right. If you think about it from a physical exercise thing, what is physical exercise? It's pain. It's doing something that creates resistance, and you're trying to you're trying to build your muscles, right, through obstacles. I guess what I'm trying to say with this channel and through my lifestyle is instead of finding an extracurricular way of doing that, let's find ways to incorporate it in the actual flow of our lives rather than doing these pastimes. So instead of having working out as a separate section, like put it into our goals. So like for me, Jared, Improbable One, that would mean like picking up the heavy piece of equipment if we're filming a movie one day. If we get to the point where we're like, rather than having a grip crew, like we are the grip crew and we rotate. Like everyone learns to do like these different things. Obviously, if someone has a physical disability, that's a different story. Like we're not going to keep them off the project or whatever. But for those of us who are physically capable and are working out otherwise, just layer it. Like don't actually have that extra thing. Like that's kind of the idea I'm getting at. And so I think if there's ways that we can do that with our stoic, not repression, but channeling of desires, resistance of desire to help us to be more resilient in the face of temptation, so that we're not just puppets of dopamine, that find ways to incorporate that into our daily life. Sun Canil says history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. I like that. Zurani says you're going to make that sacrifice whether you want to or not. The only choice you have is to choose the sacrifice. And I think that's what JBP is really getting at. Definitely. Jared says, everything has come down to this moment and it's not that serious. A somewhat similar description I like is from X-Men First Class, where Xavier, I almost said Javier, where Xavier tells Eric, I believe that true focus lies between rage and serenity. See, I liked that line too, and people made fun of me about it. I liked that line a lot. I thought that moment was legit, and people were like, oh, it's just that's sophistry. Well, of course it's somewhere between rage and serenity, but the point is you're taking that rage and you're channeling it through this almost Buddhist like breath,
you're taking rage to the other end of it. Yeah, you're taking it. You're through the rage instead of backing.
Yes,
off the rage.
Exactly. It's nuclear power, right? I mean, it's taking the explosive, world-ending, destructive force and then channeling it through this constructive. I thought that scene was beautiful. Okay, like I thought that scene was beautiful. That was Ubik for me. I agree. Thank you for bringing that one up. They see Laser Green 09 on Twitch says they say irrationality is a human instinct. Yeah. And they're actually again coming back to that whole thing, conserving what's come before. There are even times for irrational action. I mean, you think about some of these hero scenes in movies, it's like an irrational thing. And sometimes you got to go for it. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up. Last couple comments. Oh, Laser Green is Alex. Okay. It took me a while there. Sorry. Hutch says it's good to see that there's more interaction on Twitch today. Yeah, I think we're really gonna try to mosey on over to the Twitch. I do like their culture, their community, and they've been cool cats. All right, Godspeed, everyone. This week, if you would like to support the show, do consider subscribing on Twitch. You can also go to patreon.com/thesurfingviolinist. Special thanks to all our supporters. And next week, we're going to dive into something new, something a little different, a little less political, a little less Ford ranty, potentially. I don't know. We'll see. It is me. So until next time, Godspeed. And let me see if I can find my thing. My new sign-off. I think I named it this time. Oh, yeah. I've called it the so the Surfing Violinist Hypothesis. All right? That's what I'm calling it instead of a mission statement. Because a hypothesis, our goal here is to test and prove, evaluate. If it's not aligning with a reality, we want to go back in and find out. Maybe our ideals were wrong. So I wrote this one today. I think I said it in the doohickey. But I woke up with this in my head. Short-sighted, idealistic trajectories become atavistic or become outmoded with time due to unforeseen innovation. So we don't want our goals to be our 10 commandments. There may be time to rearrange our hypothesis when we get into the nitty-gritty and realize this does not work. We do not want to become Citizen Kane. We want to be dynamically adaptive. So until next time, may God be with you on your quest for consistency, kismet, and non-zero-sum creativity. Godspeed until we meet again.
To meet again.